Welcome to the Ruiz program, episode 5, with José Angelo Pinto. This show is brought to you by the Project Management Institute, by the Information Systems Community of Practice, and is designed to bring you some remarkable project managers, to bring you closer to their experience and their lives. Now, on today's episode, we have José Pinto, who is, amongst several other things, president of the Portugal chapter of the PMI. And I would like to welcome José. Hi, José.
Hello, Luis. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope that all the listeners may feel that they are learning something out of our conversation. Well, thank you for inviting me, and thank you to the ISCOP for bringing me on. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I'd like to start by talking a bit about you, so people have an understanding of where you come from. Now, you start with a management major, right?
Yes.
So
yeah. Well, I'm most of all I'm a manager, and my degree when I took it a few years back, it was on management. Afterwards, I felt that I need to improve the way that I understand the physical part of the projects, and so I went to an engineering school, and I did a master's in engineering, actually engineering. So I think that I am a good example of a project manager, because for once I have the background on management that I think all the project managers have to have, because it's very important to know how to manage people, how to manage your resources, and how to apply them correctly in your project. At the same time, I think it's very important that you understand correctly the way that the project has to go by physical terms, and how the engineering part of the project is brought and built. And so I believe to be, I'm a very lucky person, because I was able to understand, and I think that I truly understand well both these worlds, that most of the time they don't communicate as easily as they get with me. So I think I'm a very lucky person by being able to do this.
great, but usually your career is a bit odd, because how does someone from management ends up in project management?
Well, actually, my first activity, the first time that I did something professionally, it was a project. It was to build an information system project for a specific customer. Actually, both myself and my brother, that is a long-time partner in some of the ventures that I have, we worked at home and we produced the system for this customer. It was a project. It was back in '87, so I'm very old. And in '87, when we look at what we have today and the methodologies, the processes, the tools that we have to manage well our projects, and when we compare back to '87, that's really amazing. My first contact with the Microsoft project was with a black and white system that you had to print the schedule. You know, there was no way that you would see the schedule. You had to print it to see it. And so it is. I'm a project manager for a long time, and so when I studied management, I thought that I was developing the abilities that I have to manage better the things that I do, including projects. And when I felt that I really need to understand the other part of the thing, to understand the way that people think, to produce, to deliver the result, and to understand the way that the engineer builds the things that he's supposed to build, then it was a time to go to the other side. And so that's what I did. The usual background for a project manager is the old way around. It's an engineer that develops management skills and goes to some MBA or something like that, and in order to understand better how to manage people. So I'm not, yeah, my background is different because I came from management and then I went to engineering, which is very interesting, believe me.
Do you think that that was the thing that gave you the edge to become a good project manager coming from a business background, or do you think do you have some other personal quality that helped you through the process?
Well, I think that leadership may be taught. You know, I think that everybody may learn how to become a better leader and to understand better the people and to understand better the way that the people work inside your project and your activities. But I also believe that there are sets of things that you have inside you that will help you to be a better leader. So I think that I have to thank my mother and my father because I believe that what you learn when you are very young, that's something that builds the person that you are going to be. And so I think that the 3 or 4 first years of your life actually define what you are going to be able to do. And for myself, speaking for myself, I had to develop some leadership abilities very early in my life because of the way that my personal life evaluated. And so I had to, and so I did. And the way that I see it today, I believe that I'm a good leader to have on with you when things are not going in the right direction, and I believe that I'm also a good leader to have with you when you are going in good times, in good direction. So I think that I've developed that, and to say that it is the management background that I have that actually brought it together, I think it would be too much. I believe that it helps. Okay, there was some things that actually I developed being a manager, but there are others that it wouldn't be possible to do it. So I think it's a mix of the things that we are talking about.
Okay, and what about your worst quality as a project manager?
Well, what is my worst quality? Well, I'm a very stern person. When I believe in something, it's very hard to let it go. And sometimes I think that I take things far than they probably other person will do it. And so I'm very result oriented. And so sometimes I go after the result, and if the result is something that I see as important and strategic, and I believe that that is going to make some kind of difference, and that it's going to improve people's way of thinking or people's life, then it's very hard for me not to act. And I can tell you an example of that. I own part of a small newspaper, and well, that's a project every time the paper is printed. And the thing is, I do it because of the importance that the things that we say in this new newspaper actually makes to the people life in the region, because otherwise I won't be interested in doing it, because for money it's not that well. It probably it's one of the few newspapers in the world that actually provides very little profit, but it is something that it's not worthwhile the effort. And so I do things because I believe they are important, even and sometimes I am very stern. I go after, and it's very difficult for me to let go and say, hey, this is something that you were not able to achieve, or you were not able to produce. And so it is one of the characteristics that I have. the other one is that I'm not that good at English speaking, as you can see. But
Is that how you can manage to have to be a partner in several companies, to be the CEO of Ambitus, president of the Portugal chapter of the PMI, and volunteer for the PMI and whatever else you do?
well, you know, one thing that I find very interesting, and I'm always I say this a lot, so probably you personally have heard me say this before, but what I find is that it's much more easy to find a proper scheduled time to have a meeting with someone that is a very occupied and who has too much on his plate than with someone that has an empty schedule. It's very easy for me to schedule something with people that I find to be very, very occupied, and it's much more difficult to agree on a time with someone that I actually know that is not doing anything. So I think time management and schedule management it's one of the reasons why I can be doing lots of different things. The other thing that it's really important, it's the people. Every business that I have with other people, and the other people that I have working with me, they are always the best. I try to find the best people when I think about a new business venture, or when I think about how I'm going to do a new product or a new thing, and I always try to have the best people that I can find, and that's one of the things that I believe. Strongly believe that people make a difference, and well, actually, you told that I'm the Ambitus CEO. Actually, I'm not the CEO. I'm the vice president, and so I have a very interesting and a very demanding person as a president of the company that I actually own a big part. Why? Because I believe that when you have people that are better than you are, you have to make them work with you in such a way that it is going to improve and to develop the products and the things that you do in each business. And so I have a very diverse portfolio of businesses, if you can say like that. Some of those are very good, and they provide very good results for the people that are working with them and inside them. Others aren't as good, but I think for me it's the mix, and I am improving and becoming better in the way that I work with the people in the business. There are some businesses that I have that they are actually very interesting, and we are in some fields developing things that are unique, and that can be sold all over the world with benefits. And I can give you an example. Like, for instance, I own a part of a very small company called Bullet Solutions. Bullet Solutions, I'm the vice president. That's a role that I like to have, to be the second in the company. And this company produced an information system actually based on an optimization algorithm that is something really amazing, because it produces the best possible timetable for school teachers and students for the timetables of the year. And the best possible means that it's the optimal one. And so to be able to participate in something like this company, for me, it's very, very demanding, because there are lots of things that you have to do to make the company go further. and at the same time it is very, very, very interesting. And so that's I think it's the secret. It's to be inside the things, and to look at the things and understand the way that they actually work, and to be able to find what is going inside the people brain and inside the people expectations, and go after them. That's I think it's very, very interesting to have so many different businesses, and I take a lot from ones to the others, lots of things that I know because I've been there, I've seen, and so I'm becoming like an old wisdom person that actually can understand the way that we have to go further, and to people are one of, it's the secret to have good people everywhere, and so that's what I always try to have. And one thing that I've learned is actually this came in a conversation that I had with a very close friend that I'm not going to mention the name, because it's something that actually someone that it's actually known, and so if he's listened to this, he'll say, hey, that's my phrase. And only he will know it's his phrase, but it's something like you can't do good business with bad people. It's impossible. You can do bad business with good people. That's true, but the probability of having good business with bad people, that's impossible. Thank God there aren't that much bad people, but there are some, and so that's as far as we go in this subject.
You definitely keep yourself busy, but all that you talked about still doesn't explain how you can manage, at least to my knowledge, without a personal assistant, how you can manage the huge amount of email accounts that you have. I don't know anyone with that many. I don't know.
I don't know if I've shown. Have I shown you? It's 44 email boxes that I have. 44, and they are rising. But it's something that it's very hard. It's to delete a mailbox. 44. I have a personal assistant. She's been working with me for several months now, and she's been helping me in one of the projects that I'm involved. But I can't pass the email. It's impossible. I can't pass my agenda, my schedule. It's impossible, because it is so complicated and sometimes so personal, because that's one thing that you understand, because it's too many things to have different agendas. It's impossible. So I try to have one that it's good, and so believe me, I have tried, and it is very time consuming for me and for her. And so what we decided is that I kept my agenda, I kept all the scheduling and all the timetables. She sometimes schedules things for me, okay, and I always use a 2-slot technique. That's very easy. It's to say, hey, you have this or this option, and the other people will say which ones will work for him. And so it's complicated, but at the same time it is very interesting, and to be able to we are at this point, it's 6:15. Most of the people in my country leave their jobs at 5 or 6, and so I still have some things that I have to work on today, and so I'll be working until something like 8 something. Then I will try to not read emails for something like 8 hours. And in the morning, I have a trip scheduled to Lisbon. I'm in Porto today, but I work in Lisbon and Porto. That's 2 different cities, and there are something like 250 miles away from each other. And so I travel a lot between these two cities. So tomorrow at 7 I'll be traveling. I have a board of directors meeting at 8:30 on Skype that probably I'm going to ask the person that is going with me tomorrow to Lisbon to drive, so I'll be able to participate in the board without any disturb. And so at 9 I have schedule meetings for a project that I'm involved. Tomorrow I think I have something like 8 meetings for the day. The last one is a webinar that I'm doing at 6 p.m. in the afternoon for the AVM community of practice. Actually, it's a translation to Portuguese from a webinar that was made by Ken Smith and about AVM. So it's if you guys want to assist, it's on 6. It's on Portuguese, so most of the things won't be understandable by English-spoken persons. And so it's at 6 this webinar, and at 8 I hope to be in Lisbon dining somewhere. I don't know where yet, and then we have work to do to be able to produce the next day, and so that's it. But I'm going to try to take 2 weeks of vacations. You know, it's a privilege that I'm going to try to have this year, because I think that to be able to be 2 weeks out of the country, that's something that I'm going to try to do. I'm not sure yet if I'll be able to not read emails. That probably is not going to be possible, but I won't be reading them as often as I'm doing now. Well, emails is only a part of the thing, because I try not to read them too much, you know, because I try to do it on the end of the morning and the end of the afternoon. And unless it's something that I know that you have to take care in that moment. So it's very interesting and very complicated at the same time. For instance, today. Okay. Well, if I start speaking about myself, I'll be talking all day long. So, Luis, okay. Please.
But still, you managed to have the time to be a volunteer for several years on PMI, and as far as I know, it's the first time that the Portugal chapter has a team of volunteers working that you manage last year to get started.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about how do you get how do you convince a bunch of people to work for you for free, just for kicks?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your volunteers on the Portugal chapter?
Well, it's people again. It's to have the right people, and to have the right people managing and getting and putting volunteers into work. Well, and one of the things that you have to do is to make sure that the people will get results out of their volunteer time and out of the work that they do. Speaking for myself, I've been a volunteer for something like 10 years, I think, because I've been involved in PMI as volunteer, I think, since 2003. That's when the Portugal chapter was founded. I'm a founding director. And so I think it's 10 years. And for me, my motivation was that I had some technical abilities that were different from the other project managers that were involved in the chapter, like accounting, for instance. That's something that, from my management background, I could understand and help them to put into place. And so I had some personal abilities that actually were very well seen by my colleagues, and so it was an involvement, and the way I became involved in the chapter was very interesting. Afterwards, at the time, in the communities of practice, that nowadays called communities of practice, in the old days the SIX, and so I became pretty much involved in that also, and to be able to have friends all over the world. That's something that really motivates me as a volunteer. But to motivate our volunteers, well, we made a call for volunteers in the early beginnings of 2012, and we had a very good response from the people. Actually, we had something like, I think, 44 volunteers that actually applied, and so we already had some volunteers in as the board and other charters inside the chapter, and so we had already some volunteers, and so we became with 60 volunteers in the early 2012. What we did is we organized them in such a way that they had a sponsor inside the board, and each of them had a way to produce and deliver results. And we had a very interesting and demanding work for this group of volunteers. That was one of the most important things that the chapter has to do, is to change its bylaws, because the bylaws of the chapter aren't appropriate, in my understanding at this point, for the proper management of the volunteers and of the chapter itself. And so I believe that we need to change these bylaws. And so we had 17 very well-known and recognized persons, actually like you, you were in that team, that worked with us to make a bylaw change proposal. It has been a long process. It's in the ending phase, and I hope to be able to have a proper government documents in the next few months, and afterwards the chapter is going to be reborn after these new governance documents. And well, there were some volunteers like this group that actually produced very well the results, and they were after the things, and they actually made very important individual contributions. And at the same time, we had other that didn't work as well, because they kind of have problems of who is going to be the leader and how we are going to get organized. They were kind of expecting the board member that was the sponsor to act as the project leader and not as the sponsor, and so there was some different misunderstandings. And there is a normal thing also, because in volunteering, and that I've learned with other very important and very known volunteer in the world of PMI. Actually, I think he is the IS manager at this point. It's Vasilj, and Vasilj told me a few years ago that when you are running volunteers, what you have to do is to give them small pieces of work and see how they deliver, because you have to make sure that the volunteer is not there only to have his name on some plaque, or only to have some recognition that actually isn't that important, but you have to make sure that the volunteer also wants to deliver the results and also wants to produce the things that he's supposed to produce, which is a very complicated mix, because for once you have people that are working for free, and for the others you have things that you have to do that the institution and the organization has to produce. And so it's not easy to manage volunteers. To manage volunteers is very complicated. But one of the things that actually motivates volunteers is to see that what they are doing is having good impacts in the society. One of the projects that we have that is one of the most interesting and demanding, and at the same time one of the most result oriented projects that we have, it's called PMI Portugal at Schools. And we have several secrets to the success of this project. This project, actually, this program, it's a program. This program constitutes the appliance of a kit that was developed in North Italy chapter by Walter Genivri. And it's the appliance of this kit in a school, in a set of schools, actually. And so to have the proper volunteer running the program, that's Isabelina, and to have a proper set of volunteers like PMPs that actually are there for the benefits of the program and not to get some plaque with their name on it. It's been very, very, very interesting. It was one of the most probably one of the most important things that we did on the Portugal chapter for these 2 years that I've been running it. It was this program. This program is very intense. It's very oriented towards the school students, and at the same time it has the involvement of the teachers and of our volunteers and so on. And so we developed a methodology, if you want, to apply the school kit that involves a mentorship process that was was the secret to the success. Of course, sponsorship and proper sponsorship from the chapter, from the school, and from the entities that are running the process, the program, and from even from the things like city council. It was very, very, very important for the success. But sorry, because when I start talking about volunteering, I lost the sense of time, and so I'll be able to speak for hours about volunteering and about the projects that we've been doing in the PMI Portugal chapter that involves volunteers. Nowadays, we have something like 50 active volunteers in the chapter. If you know that our chapter is very small because we are a very small and poor country, well, we have something like 275, I think, members. And so for the number of members and comparing the number of members to the volunteers, you understand that we are in the right track when we are talking about running volunteers and programs that volunteers are being able to produce and to deliver.
I can identify perfectly with what you said about the volunteers on PMI. At my office, we use volunteer programs, and we start by a training that we call professional volunteer training. So to give you an idea of how serious it is taken, and the motivation of the volunteer is one of the things that is taken into account on those trainings. But back at the PMI at schools, this was the first experience last school year. Next school year, what are we going to do with the program?
Well, the sky is the limit. I cannot talk about the things that are being discussed to improve the program itself. I can talk about what I think it can happen in 2 or 3 years, because the way I see it, we had a pilot in this school that went with 3 major projects for the children and for the working on trying to have a thing that we call projectized school. Okay, it's something like everything that happens in school that is not regular teaching should be managed as a project, which is a very long way to go. If we achieve this and if we show these results to the community, one thing that we believe we may do is to have our kit and the mentorship program being sponsored by the educational ministry, which is something that we think that may be a direction to go, because the objectives, the goals of the program itself, it's to make sure that the schools are applying piece of the methodology to manage projects in their actions. Well, this is may seem to something like interfering into the school life, but actually, if it is done in the proper and the right way, with the right people, with the right volunteers, and with the right set of methodology, that won't happen. It won't happen because the school will see the results are, and the truth of the matter is that most of the things that we do on the school aren't well. Most of the things that the teachers do on the schools are already project oriented, are already with some kind of methodology. When we mix our methodology with what they are doing, it's something like win-win-win. And so that's what has been happening in this project. But the question was, how do you go into the future? And we can go into the future having other schools participating. That's a way to go. We can improve the participation in this school, and we can also do some kind of evaluation of the kit and of the processes that we are using to make sure that they may be used in all the country's schools, which will be interesting. We have this problem in our country because a few years ago there was a regular subject on the school called project, and this discipline, this subject was something like you had the time to do things that you couldn't do in all the others. You know, it was not well organized, in our opinion, to improve the way that the students actually manage their projects. And so it's an opportunity if we can start this again and in the right direction at this point, hopefully. There are some strong signs that we have that is maybe a way to go, but I want, well, I don't want to make it too strong, and afterwards we won't be able to produce the results that we are expecting. But I think we are in the right direction. Yes.
That is great. And just to finish this this round on volunteers, you've managed to give a lot of lectures in PMI congresses, at least. I had the opportunity to assist to some of those. Is there a particular topic or a particular presentation that that you did that you want to talk about? Anything you want to
well, when we talk about presentations in public, I always remember the first time that I had to do a very big presentation when I have 1,300 people in the room, and it was very stressing because the two speakers before myself, they were really not that interesting, and when it was my turn, I had to turn the room over with 1,300 people inside the room and without any experience on doing it. And so I think that I'm becoming better and better on presenting, which is good because people are coming to the presentations that I do because they are going to have an enjoyable time, and at the same they are going to learn something, and that's what makes it so fascinating. The first time that I present for a PMI Congress, it was very interesting because it was in Kazakhstan, and it was the international conference or something in project management, and the international part was me. You know, and so it was very, it was very interesting because I was something like treated. For my first PMI experience being a presenter, I was treated like a king. You know, because I was the most important person in the place. And so after that, everything is not as good. You always see, hey, this is a parallel session, for instance, with all competing with 10 others, and so you only have something like 40 people inside the room, and you say, hey, where are the other persons? The first time I had 1,300, and then, well, but the subject, well, it has to be OPM3, of course. OPM3 is one of the most important and one of the most not known secrets inside PMI. I think that OPM3, the ability that OPM3 has to produce organizational results is something amazing, and people actually didn't get it yet. And so when you have OPM3 in your presentation and you are talking about OPM3, you won't get as many people as you have when you are talking about leadership or how to improve the way that you manage your stakeholders or something like that.
Can I interrupt? So, just to ask you a couple of things. First,
you are the interviewer.
But can you explain what OPM3 is about in just a few sentences, so everyone is on the same page on this? And next, OPM3 was the next topic I was going to mention. I'd like you to talk a bit about how someone who is a project manager at heart ends up in OPM3. Could you do that?
Yeah, I can. Let's start from the first. Well, OPM3 is, it's very easy to explain. It is a way to understand how the organization is making their projects, their programs, and their portfolio. Okay, so on OPM3, what we do is we go into the organization, we apply a standard, a book that is produced, organized by PMI, and we see if the processes that are defined in PMBOK and in portfolio management standard and in program management standard, we go and we see if the processes are established inside the company, if the company is using the processes, if the persons inside the company understand the way that the process is built, and if the people are following those processes. Well, what we get from here is we understand if the company is or isn't well organized and and if it has well-established processes to manage the projects, the programs, and portfolios. The OPM3 itself, it's a maturity model for evaluation of the maturity of the organization. When you do an OPM3 to an organization, in the end, we will say to that organization how much mature the organization is. Okay, that's the one of the achievements that OPM3 brings to the organization. The other one is an improvement project. Well, on OPM3 you have the assessment. Assessment is to see what the organization is doing and the way it is doing, and in the other side you have the improvement plan. You have the things that the organization may do to improve itself and become more mature. The secret is to have a good mix between the objectives that you have in this improvement plan with the strategical vision of the company and the way that the company wants to go further. If, for instance, you have a company that wants to go and sell an information system in the United States. Okay, that's the main goal of the company. That's the way that the company wants to go. You have to make sure that the processes that you are advising the company to establish are aligned with this strategical vision. That's something that the OPM3 has to be able to do. Well, but the thing is that we do not see only how the projects, the programs, and the portfolios are established in the company. We also see how the company itself is receiving and is injecting things into the projects. For instance, we see if the marketing department, for instance, is making a good portfolio decision in the projects that they are going to go after. And we see the processes for the marketing itself, and we say if these processes are aligned with the projects and the programs and the portfolio that we are establishing. So we have this, OPM3 calls them organizational enablers, that are people inside the organization that receives the results of the projects, or people inside the organization that provides resources to do the projects. And so we do not stay only on the project area and we are done. No, we look at the way the organization does it. So OPM3, the value that is inside OPM3 is in this improvement project. The improvement project, the things that the organization may do to improve itself is something really interesting, and it's something that PMI actually invested a lot of resources to make sure that the way that these improvement plans are made is aligned with all the defined things inside the OPM3. So it is a very straightforward model for once, but at the same time it is very well established, very well organized, and if you do it properly, it's the amount of results that the organization can have is really big. It's really big, and so it is very, very, very interesting that you asked about OPM3. I think I've lost the second question.
The second question was how does the project manager ends up doing OPM3? Because I don't see much. I mean, the skills needed for an OPM3 project are way different than the ones that a typical project manager has. I imagine. Yeah. I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, if you are a project manager, it's going to help when you are watching the project management processes, because a project manager worth of his name, he'll know what the 42 processes inside PMBOK are, and he'll know what he has to go after to understand if the company has a methodology established and is following it and so on. So being a project manager will help somebody that wants to be an OPM3 expert, because it's going to be something like 25% of the things that you need to know are there on the project management field. But that is really not enough, because you have to know a lot about program management. You have to know a lot about portfolio management. You have to know a lot about organizational behavior. You have to know a lot about change management. You have to know a lot about the insights of each organization. And so it won't be enough. And you have to be truly an auditor. So to be an auditor, to be like somebody that comes from the outside and looks into what is happening in your company, to have an audit profile is something, in my opinion, more important than to be a project manager, to be a good OPM3 expert. And PMI knows this, because if you look at the process to become an OPM3 certified person, you'll see that the first you have to to participate in a course that it's called where do good projects came from. And this course is something like how to manage your project, program portfolio, and organizational enablers. So it's a course that goes into the way that the organizations think. And then you have a test, and in this test, most of the things that PMI is looking for when you are making the test is for audit abilities, to be able to understand and to make proper questions, understand the answers, understand when you need to ask for evidences, or when really the person is talking truly, and so you don't need to confirm exactly what everything that the person is saying. And so to have this sense of knowing, it comes from experience, and it comes from the ability to understand when you are in an audit profile. It's very different from the project management profile. I've been doing probably I'm one of the persons that has done more interviews in OPM3 because I'm involved in a very demanding project in that field, and I've been doing many interviews, and one of the things that I find is that it is to understand the way the organization thinks. It's much more important than to understand the proper project, program, and portfolio, especially when you are looking at what the organization is doing and you are trying to see how you can improve the organization, and you are trying to see what you can do or you can advise the organization to do to improve itself. So it is very interesting and demanding at the same time.
Is there a particular project in that area that you're proud of, or that gave you most satisfaction?
Well, I hope that you have 2 more hours to interview me, because it is
actually, we have 9 minutes more tops.
Really? Well,
really?
that is really well. It was very quick. Let me say that one of the projects that my company, that's Ambitus, that's a project management company, specialized project management company. We defined it when we started it up that we will address 3 areas in the project management field. We'll go after training, consulting, and research. Okay, it is a very there aren't that many all over the world companies that from the beginning define themselves as researchers in an area, and in project management I think there are only a few. And one of the things that we did, I'm the vice president of the company, and my role is I'm responsible for the strategic of the company's strategical vision, and I'm in charge of the project management practices. So the things that we do in methodology and so on, it's my responsibility. And on research, I'm also the responsible. And so when we were thinking about this, I had a first contact with OPM3 for a few years ago, and so I thought, why not to use OPM3 in a large scale in Portugal? And so we wrote a project. It's called OPM3 Portugal project, and in this project we get sponsorship from the European Union funding. Okay, so this is a project that is funded by European Union research money. And we are working on such a way that we go inside 100 organizations, and we look at the way that they are doing things, projects, programs, and portfolio management. We look at the way that they are doing it, and we analyze their processes. We analyze what they are doing. We analyze the way that they are doing, and according and following all the OPM3 rules. In the end, we give each company an improvement plan, and we give them also an evaluation plan. Sorry, an evaluation report, not a plan. You can't. It doesn't make a sense to have an evaluation. Okay. Well, and in these 100 companies, we try to get some industrial sector analysis to have our research and to improve the way that Portuguese organizations are doing their projects, programs, and portfolio. Our objective in the end of the project is to have an information system that we can actually work for inside our organization for everything that we do on OPM3. It is to be the first European company in OPM3. I think that probably we already achieved this one. And we want to be able to do OPM3 in a much more quick and organized and at the same time result-oriented way, following and obeying to all the OPM3 rules from PMI. And we are being able to do it. One of the things that we want is to have sectorial analysis, like, for instance, if you have a normal information system company in Portugal, we want to give you a guideline so you can improve your processes without going through all the OPM3 project process itself. We have at this point something like 12 IS companies, strong IS companies, and we are quite convinced that in the end we will have a guide for any IS company that wants to improve their processes, that we will tell them what they have to do easily and without any complicated thing like going through all the assessment process. So today morning I presented the results. I presented the improvement plan in a company. Tomorrow I'll be doing OPM3 all day long again, and so it has been kind of my life for the last year. The project itself, it's a research project. It's a 2-year project. It is more or less in the ending phase. So we are in the process of having a 100 company field. We are in the field work now, and we hope to be able to have it more or less finished by February, March next year. So it is a very interesting subject for me, at least, the OPM3 Portugal project.
It is a fascinating project, I'm sure, and I'm sure that you could talk about it for 2 hours more. I know we've talked about it a lot more, but right now we only have like 3 minutes more. I would like you to make a few quick questions with really short answers.
Oh, yes and no. I'm going to try to go for yes and no. Okay.
Okay.
It's going to be easy.
Let's try then. The first thing is, since you have a bit of experience on project management, it seems, what is it remarkably different from what you see now in project management from when you first started?
Systems, tools, they are very different. I already told you that the version that I first knew of Microsoft project, I think I can say Microsoft project here, it was you didn't see the schedule, you had to print to see the schedule. Nowadays everything is graphic and everything is what you see is what you get, and everything is very near to what the people really understand. And so I think that the development that the tools have, that's a very interesting. Other thing that I think it's improving quite well also, it's in the project management areas like communication, for instance, stakeholder management, and to be able to go much more into management than in the old days. I think that in these last 10 years that I've been very active person all over the world in PMI, I think that it really changed the way that people talked about the things. 10 years ago, it was much more technical things. Nowadays, it's much more leadership and people and how to improve the way that I am a leader and so on. So I think it's one of the big differences.
Was this OPM3 Portugal the best project that you ever had, the one where you had the most fun, or is there another one you can tell us about?
Well, there are others that I could talk hours about, but I think that this one is it's the more demanding, and at the same time the more exposed, because it is a very it has really many stakeholders. Okay, it involves 5 out of 5 of our major universities, for instance. They are involved in the project. So stakeholder management, for instance, it's really interesting. And at the same time, there are others that I could talk about, but I think this one is the one that gives me more fun. Not the one that gives me more money, that's another story, but it's the one that actually gives me more fun, that's for sure.
Okay. What is, suppose you have a new project manager watching this video, what is the best piece of advice that you could offer him or her?
Wow, that is very complicated. I think that one of the most important things that everybody has to learn is how to listen. And if you listen properly to your stakeholder, if you listen properly to your team, if you listen properly to the persons that are interested in your project and so on, I believe that you will be able to improve the way that you understand the people that are inside the project, are involved in the project. And so I think that for people that are more technical oriented, usually the new project manager are much more technical than they should, in my opinion. So probably I will say listen. Yeah, if I can say only one word.
Okay. And finally, I know you've been watching these interviews. Who do you think I should interview next? Who would you like to see in your place?
Well, I think Walter Ginevri may be interesting. I don't know if you already interviewed him. Have you interviewed him already? Yes?
No, I'm laughing because Walter is next.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
he's the 6th. Okay, he's a very interesting person to interview. Then I think you could interview also. I don't know how many women did you interview already?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
How many women did you interview? Woman.
Curious enough, none.
So that's
None
something
so far.
you have to work on that. Agnieszka, for instance, from Poland, she was in our event of the PMI Portugal chapter a few weeks ago. I think she's a very interesting project manager to interview.
Okay.
Well, there are many interesting persons in the PMI and in the project management area. So and you already interviewed quite a few, but there are always people that are interesting, not only because they know a lot about the subject, but also because they are interesting people. And you have lots of those, like David Wilson or Steve Wick, or lots of Americans also that you can interview. Vazils, for instance, is a very good interview to have. I don't know if you already interviewed him, but he's a very interesting project manager. I'm trying to keep away from ones that you already interviewed that I know of. And yeah, you have many good people that you can interview, and that will give you a much better interview than this one that I just did, much more interesting and much more straight to the facts, and not discussing and finding the things that you want to talk about. I think that and you do very well your research, so your questions are very difficult, and so I think it's very. I would like to see those people that I've talked, but you could interview someone from the board, for instance, like Diana. Diana is our chair at this point. It's not as easy to get into an interview as others, but that will be interesting. Or you can interview Ricardo Triana, for instance. He's from the States, working on the States, but he has Latin origins, so it's someone that will be able to talk more emotively about things than others. And of course, you could interview our president and Mark Langley. That will be also very interesting.
So you just gave me work for another 10 years.
No, not that much, but I think it's project management. Yeah, project management is very interesting, and there are lots of interesting people. And so, as you know, because you know quite some of the people that work and of the people that helps PMI to become better. And so I think that it's very, very interesting to have so many people. Liam Bilong, for instance, it will be a very interesting interview also. He was last year in our conference in Portugal. Or Dino Vuzorak, also very interesting person from the East. There are lots of interesting people. Yeah. Thank God.
Okay, well, we just showed that I just showed that I'm a poor time manager. We just went 5 minutes over our time slot, but I really like to thank you for accepting this interview. It's really been a good time. And hopefully insightful for our viewers. Do you just want to say anything before I close the interview?
Well, thank you, Luis, for asking me, and I hope that the people that will be able to run our interview until the end will find it interesting and will find some value out of it. I think that I try always to say things that provide value to the people. That's I think it's an objective when you are doing something like this, and you do an amazing work for yourself, finding the right questions to make. So thank you very much.
Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for today. Just let me say that I appreciate very much José's time being here, and that this interview is brought to you by the PMI Information Systems Community of Practice, and we've been idle for some time, but we're back on track, and we just accidentally revealed our next interview, which is with Walter Ginevri, and it will be mainly on program management, but a lot of other stuff. And just hope that you have learned something, that you have enjoyed this interview, and that I will see you for the next one with Walter Ginevri. Again, thank you, José.
No, thank you.